I know I'm just going back over this again. Pacifists, do they want war or not want war? So Jane Addams, we know who did a settlement house, is going to be a part of that pacifist movement. Robert Lafayette, who is a Wisconsin senator, also the same thing. The American Civil Liberties Union, I don't know if y'all heard about them today, but anytime the First Amendment right or the 14th Amendment right is being challenged, they will go out. And it's because of the espionage, which I think about espionage and I see the word SP and then I know it's I, but I think of spy. We're looking for spies. Who are we figuring out? Who do we feel that are spies in America at this time? Not Russians, Germans. And so this is really, this is why American, at this time, there's a lot of German businesses, but they're all tied to beer, like Anheuser-Busch. The government actually goes in, and we're going to not have the 18th Amendment right now, but what occurs is the precursor to the 18th Amendment, where they're going to close down all of those breweries because they realize what goes into beer. I don't know if y'all know what goes into beer. Apparently y'all are not craftsmen and make beer at home on your weekends. But we're going to talk about moonshine later in the 20s. But what occurs is that what goes into beer is wheat. It is hops. But that is stuff that could be made into food for the war effort. And so the government goes in during World War I and starts to close all of those businesses because they say in effort for the war, but now most of them are German owned. So then the Germans are not acquiring that money to support the German effort in World War I. And so that's the greatest fear, is this whole thing of the spy. And so the next thing is the Sedition Act. We've seen this act before the War of 1812, right? Mm-hmm. Sedition is just a fancy word for speech. And basically it's a crime to utter anything, utter, print, or say anything against the government, or write anything against the government that is getting in the way of the war effort. Again, that's a violation of what? Can't utter, speech, write, your First Amendment. So this is what led to that Schneck case, which I promise you're going to see on your review quiz. I promise there's a document on your test on Schneck saying that it goes to Oliver Wendell Holmes, and they realize that, can the government limit your First Amendment right? Yes. Only when your speech puts other people in danger. So we are going to see that our government is going to come in and basically limit people's speech. Okay? And you will have to know that one for the test. I promise there's a document with 3 questions with it. The last thing, good old Eugene, he's going to test this case. And he's going to go around encouraging people to evade the draft. And y'all had the draft on y'all's study guide. It said anybody 18 to 45 must register for service. And so he's going to go out with pamphlets. He's going to get put in jail. And again, he's going to run from the socialists in jail at this time. How do we feel about these notes? I know we were just going back over it, but I promise you will see Espionage and Sedition Act on your test, and you're going to see Schneck on your test. What we're going to look at now is what you should have just picked up. It says the end of war notes. So we know that it took some time for the United States to get involved in this war. And I have up here, this is mania. Is that the causes of U.S. involvement, or is that the causes of the European war? Okay, and then I have lust ice here, and that's the causes of the U.S. And it's really because of this, right? What is going on in the ocean, that it takes several years for the U.S. to get involved in the war. Because at the start of World War I commencing, we're going to see Woodrow Wilson takes what stance about the war? Does it neutral? And so after the Lusitania, Germany returning to unrestricted submarine warfare, that without warning, the Sussex issue, and then that telegram where they promised to go to war, asking Mexico to go to war against the U.S. because they were going to return to unrestricted submarine warfare, that the U.S. will get involved. We know that we had cultural ties, democracy to the Allies, and economic ties because we were only trading with Britain, because what was the British doing to prevent us to trade with the Germans? The blockade. And so by 1917, we get involved in this war because Germany has said they are going to go back to unrestricted submarine warfare. So the Americans send troops because of the draft. Are these troops quality or quantity? sheer quantity. They're like minions. They go out there, and we're gonna see they just add to the trenches. Okay. We know that in 1917 the Bolshevik Revolution is occurring, so the Russians flee, right? And now Germany gets to put all of its troops onto the Western Front. The U.S. being able to bring in our minions of troops is what helps aid. And they're called doughboys. Why are they called doughboys again? They're not ready. They're inexperienced, but their sheer numbers help the Allies on the Western Front. They do see action on our study guide in a battle called Meuse-Argonne. And in that battle, they're taking the railroads. By taking the railroads, that will prevent the Germans from getting supplies. So as that is going on the land, we're going to see the Germans begin to run out of supplies because of the British blockade. After they're running out of supplies because we get a hold of the railroads, the blockade is occurring, all of their central powers. And a lot of y'all had issues on that on chapter 29, part 2 study guide. Y'all were telling me the central powers were the French and the Germans were the Allies. I had no clue what happened, but these are our central powers right here. Bulgaria, the Ottoman Empire, and Austria, they all flee. So now what is happening to the German resources? They're shrinking. And because of that, we're going to see Woodrow Wilson realizes the war is imminent, it's about to be done, and he's going to drop his plan over Germany to end this war. And remember, we read his Senate speech when we were going into the war, and there was a big thing he warned. He says, if we are going to go into this war, he says, yes, we are going to make this world safe for democracy, right? But he says, when we ended this war, when we read that Senate speech, what did he tell us there could not be at the end of this war? A winner or a what?
Loser.
A loser. He says, if we had a winner and a loser in this treaty, what would it lead to? Another war, because the loser will be bitter, it will be resentful. So he's going to put his plan, again, no winner, no loser, in the 14 points. Your 14 points, we did not read it, but we're going to read it today. You should have these documents. Remember the documents we've done? We're going to read this because we're going to go back and we're going to compare what Woodrow Wilson said. He says, I cannot have a winner, I cannot have a loser. If I have either one of those, I will have an imminent war in the future, which we know will occur as World War II. But what we're going to look at is Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, because it is these 14 points on why Germany will surrender at this time. So Woodrow Wilson is being very knowledgeable here. He says, I want to prevent future wars. So in order to prevent future wars, I need to look at the causes of the war, right? So his 14 points are going to address these causes. So as I read through each point, I want you to tell me what cause he's addressing in that point. So the first one, he says, open covenants. Do y'all know what a covenant is? An agreement, a promise, a treaty. He says open covenants, openly arrived at. So they have to be in the what? Open. So can I go and have a secret conversation with someone over here and make them a promise? No. It has to be out in the open. He says, after which there shall be no private international understandings of any kind, but diplomacy shall proceed always frankly and in the public view. So if nations are going to make agreements, they must be what? Must everybody know of them? What are the causes is he trying to address where there would be private agreements amongst nations here?
No, like secret treaties.
Oh, some secret treaties. What is a secret treaty up here?
The Mexico.
Oh, what happened with Mexico? The Zimmerman note. This is the telegram, right? He's addressing the telegram here. Is there anything else where nations came together and they had an agreement, a covenant up here? Where would they have a covenant besides the telegram? Would alliances be an open covenant? Alliances. He's also trying to address alliances. So do y'all see he's addressing two issues that caused the war. Let's look at the next one. He says absolute freedom of navigation upon the seas. So what does that mean? The oceans should be what?
Open.
Open. Well, open from what? They are open. They're there.
No blockade.
No blockade, no what else? No sinking ships, no submarines. Okay, so he says absolute freedom of navigation upon the seas, outside territorial waters, alike in peace and in war. So the ocean should be free, right? No matter in peace or in war. He says, except as the seas may be closed in whole or in part by international action for the enforcement of international covenants. He's saying, okay, the ocean should always be free except when the world agrees to close them. Y'all have to understand that we're in 1917 and the Spanish influenza y'all studied last year. Is that a reason to close the oceans? Okay, so y'all know the coronavirus is going on, right? Have they closed some of China's ports? Are we allowing the Chinese to come in? No, we are allowing our Americans to come back, but what are we doing to them? Quarantining. Are we now doing, we're closing a whole or a part of the international acts and enforcement of international covenants. Okay, so what issue should y'all get why they would be free and why we're closing? Because of Spanish influenza is going on at this time. I want you to think, what issues from here is he trying to address in part 2? Give me the letters. F. I don't see F here. L. Lusitania, right? He's trying to address the Lusitania. What other issue? The Sussex. Oh, U. Unrestricted submarine warfare. Sussex. What else is he trying to address? Is he trying to address imperialism? Militarism. Okay. We could put T there because didn't the telegram mention that they were going to go back to unrestricted submarine warfare? Okay. Is he addressing the causes of the war just in point 2? What is he trying to do? He's trying to prevent what? Another war by these 14 points. Has he even gotten to a winner or a loser here? No, he's addressing all people involved. He says adequate guarantees given and taken that national armaments will be reduced to the lowest point consistent with domestic safety. What are we doing according to this one? National armaments reduced. What are we doing? Reducing our military. So what cause is he addressing? Militarism. Is he addressing anything else? Is he addressing the submarines? Yeah, I'm just going to put MU. Okay. Okay. Not Monsters University. Okay. I was thinking that in my head too. Okay. A free and open-minded and absolute impartial adjustment of all colonial claims. Colonial claims. What does that go with? People have, okay, he's trying to address imperialism. He says based on their strict observance of principle in determining in all such questions of sovereignty. What does that word sovereignty mean? People have power. He says we are going to adjust the colonial claims and determining the questions of power. The interests of the populations concerned must have equal weight with equitable claims of government whose title is to be determined. So are the colonial powers going to determine what happens to it, or the people of that area going to determine what happens to it? Oh, so he's saying the people will get to have their own power, which is called democracy. What would that go to here? Nationalism, that the people get to choose their own nation, that the colonial government won't come in. He's addressing imperialism, nationalism. Is he being a little bit idealistic? Yes, he's saying the people will choose. Okay, this next part, it talks about Belgium. Y'all already know Belgium gets trampled by the Germans, right? Basically, it's just saying in that point, Belgium will go back to being Belgium. Germany doesn't get to take it over. Austria-Hungary in this one, they're just saying that Austria-Hungary is now going to have autonomous development. So does that mean monarchy or democracy? Autonomous. An opportunity to autonomous development. Democracy. This next one, we're going to create the independent Polish state out of parts of Germany and out of parts of Austria. This last one, A general association of nations must be formed under the specific covenants for the purpose of affording mutual guarantees of political independence and territorial integrity to great and small states alike. So an association, what is he referring to here? The League of Nations, right? It's a covenant, right? It's a promise, right? That we're gonna afford mutual guarantees that everybody's gonna have political independence and territorial integrity. What does it mean to keep territorial integrity? Are we protecting areas?
Yes.
Okay, so what is this organization doing? They're preventing what?
Another one.
War, and they're establishing what? Peace. So would they be looking at all of these things and preventing it? Okay, so now looking at Wilson's 14 points. I know I did an abridgment of like Belgium through Poland, but that's just talking about all those states that are being developed in this new area, like Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. They talk about all of those new little countries. Did he establish a winner or a loser here? No. Is he establishing something to prevent wars from ever occurring again? So now looking at this, I'm going to go back to the notes that we were just on, the end of war notes. He drops copies of the 14 points over Germany. The German people, they reach up, they pick these papers up that are coming from the planes, and they read them, okay? They read them, and they realize, whoa, are these terms that Wilson has in the 14 points pretty nice? And so this is why the people of Germany forced Kaiser Wilhelm out to abdict the throne, and the new German Republic is set up, and it's this new German Republic that has been influenced by the 14 points that agrees to surrender. And on y'all study guide, a lot of y'all just put the surrender happened November 18th. I mean, not November 18th, November 1918. But you have to understand that there's more to it. It happened on the 11th hour of the 11th month of the 11th day in 1919. Do y'all see that repetitive number? Okay, 11, 11, 11, which y'all should know is a holiday, right? It is what holiday? Huh? Not Armistice Day, it's Veterans Day. 11, 11, 11, okay, 1918. Okay, of the 11th hour of the 11th month of the 11th day in 1918. It's Veterans Day. Because you have to understand this war is going to be the first war that we actually have veterans coming home. We don't have any veterans affairs or anything like that, but we're going to start to see that our government's going to recognize that we need to have a bureau to be able to handle our veterans. Because y'all saw in some of the videos, they come back, they've lost arms, they lost armaments. They've also lost their mind, right, which we saw with shell shock. So now the Great War is over. But look at this, the death tolls. Over 10 million soldiers killed, 20 million people are wounded, 10 million civilians are dead. And the biggest grunt of this war was on Russia. And so this is why on your study guide it asked you what was the state in Europe. There was anarchy, right? Economically, we were in ruins. Politically, it was in shambles. And so Europe was disillusioned. And eventually this is going to lead to, in the 20s, that people are tired of sacrifice and they're trying to rebuild their economy. And when they can't, and the depression hits in the 30s, this is what's going to lead to the rise of totalitarian states. The first totalitarian state we get in Russia with Lenin. And then eventually it will happen in Italy with Mussolini. And then eventually it goes to Germany. You have to understand the disillusionment that is after World War I really sets the stage for World War II. So what we're going to look at is how did peace come around? Because Germany surrendered according to the 14 points. But is that what they're going to agree in the Treaty of Versailles? And so one of your questions asked, who was the big four? I'm going to get off these notes, and you'll have another note set that's called the making and unmaking of peace. I blended these two notes together because I was out on leave last year, and I created a PowerPoint because I want y'all to look at some political cartoons. So I had just already talked about the causes, right? I did that with y'all, remember? Okay? So then I did this document already with y'all. Okay. I want us to look at this image. What is Woodrow Wilson doing? He's blowing bubbles. He's blowing bubbles. And what is his biggest bubble? Okay, where is this bubble coming from? What type of bull? Idealism, because he told us this is going to be the war to end all wars. This League of Nations is going to prevent war, establish peace. But what do most people like to do with bubbles? And you're going to realize that there is some mistakes that Woodrow Wilson will do. There's stuff that is going on in Europe that his bubble will be popped. Okay? So we're going to see, we already talked about Woodrow Wilson's 14 points and how they basically dealt with the causes of the war. And it was a plan to basically prevent future wars, right? There was no winner, there was no loser, and this is why Germany surrenders. But Woodrow Wilson, on your Unmaking a Peace notes, he's going to make 4 mistakes. But I want you to look at this political cartoon. Okay? Do y'all know where we are in this political cartoon? The White House. Okay? Woodrow Wilson, again, he's idealistic. In his mind, is the cup half full or half empty? Half full. If he's idealistic, does he believe his ideas are the best, or is he going to listen to others? His ideas are the best. Is that a bad thing? Okay, and so does Woodrow Wilson, he is going to go to sign this treaty in Paris with other world leaders. We know Great Britain is going to have people, France is going to have people, Italy is going to have people there. Does Woodrow Wilson as president get to sign the treaty? Who gets to sign treaties? Well, who in Congress? Is it the House or is it the Senate? The Senate. And so Woodrow Wilson is going to go by himself. I want you to see who he leaves behind. This is not Uncle Sam. Look at his name. Lodge. Lodge is the head of, he's the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. This is the guy who basically takes the treaty to the Senate, dissects it, gets the support for it, and then gets it signed. Wilson is of what party? Democrat. The people who control the Senate are Republicans. Is this guy very important to getting the treaty? So Woodrow Wilson, I already told you, does he take anybody? No. Who does he leave behind? You have to understand, I just want you to think of your dream vacation. Whatever it is in your head, do y'all have it? Okay, just imagine your parents are going to do it next week, but they decide to leave you because you have too much going on in school, and they leave you here. Are you upset now? Yeah. Okay, that's what he's feeling. This is his dream vacation, to go on vacation, to sign a treaty in Paris, and he is being left where? Oh, it was Paris your place? Yeah. A dream vacation. Now you feel sympathy for him, right? They're going to Paris. He's not getting to go. And even then, it's like he's going to Disney World because he's going to be signing a treaty. And there is a Disney World in Paris.
I know.
Poor guy. Y'all feel for him. So,
somebody get him Mickey ears.
I love Disney World.
Okay, so, do y'all feel for Lodge?
Yes.
So, Lodge is left here. What was Woodrow Wilson's most precious idea?
League of Nations.
League of Nations. Do you think he's going to be here supporting it?
No.
No. Just imagine your parents left you here and they're like, I'm taking the whole family, you're staying by yourself. Would y'all be good kids and just go to school every single day to show them? What are you going to do?
Stay home.
You stay home, party. I won't tell them, I won't report you. But you're going to rip everything to shreds, right? So this guy has been left here. Do you think he's going to support the treaty that he didn't get to go sign, or is he going to rip that treaty to shreds?
Rip it up.
He's going to rip it to shreds. And like Pelosi, yes, she's going to get in trouble. Okay? So, do you understand Lodge's predicament? And I know on y'all's study guide it asked you, did we ever sign the treaty? And you should have put no, right? It didn't pass. Because who did he leave behind? Okay, so now let's go through Wilson's mistakes. I'm going to highlight what you need to write. You don't need to write it all because Wilson makes a lot of mistakes. The first mistake is he went to Paris with who?
No.
Alone, right? Alone. He went to Paris alone. Now, silly Wilson. Second thing, he snubbed the Republican delegation. So you go snub Republican delegation. Okay? Do y'all know what it means to be snubbed?
You put under the rug.
Put out.
Put out, right? Someone offers you your food, you're like, no, I'm too good for it, right? Your dad snubs food. Okay. The next thing, Wilson neglected to include a Republican senator. He neglected to include Republican senators in his party.
Dude wasn't letting anything stop.
Yeah, but the problem is, he is what?
The president.
He's the president. What party is he of?
Democrat.
And who controls the Senate?
The Republicans.
He should have included them to be able to get their buy-in. And now that he's not even taking them, and they're sitting over here with pissed off Lodge, right? What are they tearing up?
Yeah, the Hawaii.
The League of Nations.
The League of Nations. They're wallowing with Lodge, right? And the last thing is he didn't include Lodge. And this is the main reason why the U.S. will never sign the Treaty of Versailles. We will never join the League of Nations. And eventually, we're basically still at war with Germany because we have not signed a treaty to end the war. We don't sign a treaty to end the war with Germany until 1933 under FDR because of these four mistakes.
We never go back to work.
And then we go immediately back to war like 9 years down the road with them. Okay? But do you understand why it is important for presidents to have the buy-in of the House and the Senate? Because they could basically check the power of that president and prevent him from moving. Okay? So this is what's going to lead to all the disarray. So y'all have this on your notes that there is going to be the big four who are going to show up. Great Britain, they all have different issues. So do y'all see on the next part it says Great Britain, and they has David Lloyd George. They want revenge. Does that sound like Woodrow Wilson's 14 points?
No.
No. And then we have France. That is with Clemenceau. They want land. Wait, does that sound like Wilson's 14 points? No. They basically want the Saar Valley and the Rhineland. It is rich in coal. You have to understand, by World War II, this area is found with a specific element called uranium. Eventually, the Germans will come and take this. Okay, which y'all know uranium is going to be used in the development of the atomic bomb. Atom bomb, yes. Italy, they want the Fiume seaport. They basically want a port on the Adriatic. Is this being imperialistic, these two countries?
Yeah.
Is this an open, flagrant violation of Wilson 14 points? Yes, they're being imperialistic. Lastly, the U.S. wants the League of Nations. Does Woodrow Wilson fit in with the other three? No. And this is why the Treaty of Versailles is not going to look like Woodrow Wilson's 14 points. Huh? Yeah, the guy. Hey. So, there's problems at the conference. Not everybody's going to get what they wanted. France doesn't get the Rhineland. We're going to see Italy feels betrayed because it doesn't get its port on the Adriatic. China feels betrayed because it gets no islands in the Pacific. Germany feels betrayed because does it even look like the 14 points? No. We're going to see that Wilson feels betrayed because he's going to have to sacrifice most of his 14 points for the League of Nations. Okay, this political cartoon. I'm going to go over what the Treaty of Versailles stated. I know we're all looking at it. It's a pretty cool image. Well, I think it's a cool image. I'm going to go over the Treaty of there's a lot going on. Okay, the Treaty of Versailles is not on this note set that you have of making and unmaking a peace. If you look at the end of war notes, it's right there, the Treaty of Versailles. Let me go through this treaty so I can explain this image, okay? Okay, do y'all see where it says Treaty of Versailles? First thing is Germany had to admit the war guilt. Wait, did Germany really start this war?
No.
Who started this war?
Austria-Hungary.
Well, when a Serbian nationalist killed the heir to the throne Archduke Franz Ferdinand, right? Was that really Germany's fault?
No.
Okay. Have we created a clear loser? And Woodrow Wilson said in his Senate speech in 1917, if we create a clear loser, what is going to happen? Another war. Here it is. Treaty of Versailles started it. Second thing, Germany had to pay reparations. That means money. Economically, can they do this after the war? No. That's going to be another cause of resentment. Germany's colonies had to be divided. Wait, didn't we talk about colonies being returned to their people? But did we do that for everybody? No. No German military. Did we talk about demilitarizing in the 14 points? But was it just for Germany? It was for all nations. Germany lost land to France and newly found countries of Poland. We talked about that happening, right? But was it only supposed to be Germany? Again, time and time again, does the Treaty of Versailles make a clear loser? The last thing, the League of Nations. So now let's look at this political cartoon. So do y'all see the hand? And on the hand, y'all see the countries. What are the countries squeezing Germany? This is the Weimar Republic. The British, France, America, Italy, Japan, right? And now, if you look over here, who's this tall dude? Wilson, Clemenceau, George, and then whatever his name is, the guy I forget, the last one from Italy. Okay? Do y'all see? It says the big four pills worth millions to you, I guess. And so, have you ever heard that you're a pill? Has anybody, like, hopefully no one's ever told you that you're a pill, because that means you're hard to swallow. It's not nice, right? So, looking at this, these guys are trying to give the Weimar Republic a pill, right? And is it good? Because look at it. You've got to swallow it whether you like it or not. Is this going to be hard to swallow for them? Yes. Do you understand now why there's clear resentment? Okay, so we're just going to move on from this image. Hopefully no one will ever call you a pill. Okay? So, now we need to look at this image. Okay, where are we at in this image? A subway, or subway is going to be coming soon. A bus or a train. Okay, is this proper etiquette? No. Because what would be proper etiquette? The men would get up and let the woman sit. But there is an issue with this. Alright, let's talk about who this is. Peace. So what is she probably in reference to? The treaty. The peace treaty. And specifically within that treaty, there's that league, right? Let's look at the guys. Y'all know this guy that's Lodge. Why is he upset? Why is he sitting with his arms crossed? He didn't get to go. He didn't get to make this right here, so he's upset, right? Does he even want to acknowledge it? On your study guide, it asked about a group of people called the irreconcilables. A lot of y'all told me they were against the war. They're against being in foreign affairs. And it asked, who was it? Bora is one of the leaders, and Hiram Johnson is one of the leaders. Do they even want to acknowledge her? Now this guy has a newspaper. He's like, I don't even want to acknowledge it. And you have to understand why they don't want to acknowledge the treaty. Because there's a specific part of the treaty in the League of Nations where it could pull us into other people's wars. That's Article X, which y'all probably saw on your study guide, and a lot of y'all left that blank. Okay? So they don't want to give her a seat because they're upset with this treaty. So problems at home, the irreconcilables. Bora and Johnson oppose the treaty because they're isolationists. Do they want us to be involved in foreign affairs or not involved? We're seeing Republicans. Why are they upset with Wilson? He left them. They didn't have a say. They want to get a hold of this treaty and republicanize it. They want to add stuff to this treaty. We're seeing liberals such as Germans and Irish. They look at that Treaty of Versailles and they say it does not look like the 14 points, right? It is making Germany take all fault, right? And they don't like it. They feel it's too harsh. There's a slump in idealism. You have to understand that people from 1914 to 1918 have been asked to sacrifice. Most Americans only had to do it from 1917 to 1918. But they had to sacrifice what in this war? Food, men, money. And you have to understand, this is 1918. What decade is immediately following this? And in the 20s, do people sacrifice? No, y'all had this in world history last year. People do what in the 1920s? They indulge. They go crazy. And you have to understand why that 1920s mentality is there, because they just experienced a war. A war that messed up their minds, right? People lost loved ones. Did y'all see people who were dealing with a lot of stuff from the trenches? We're going to have a whole slew of writers like William Faulkner that are going to write books called As I Lay Dying, which is in reference to the trenches, right? We're going to have, and they're called the Lost Generation, because they went into this war and Wilson was telling them this was going to make the world safe, but did it? And they come back and they're like the emo writers of their time. That's what the Lost Generation is. And so, have we lost this whole idealistic thing of going into a war? And now people are living for the now. And don't y'all see that in the 1920s? If we did not have World War I, where people sacrificed, we wouldn't have had the 1920s mentality. Okay? And now people are looking at this League of Nations, this peace treaty that could pull us into wars, and do they want to do that again? They're like, we're done with idealism. This is not going to work. This will not make the world safe. So what do they want to focus? The world or themselves? The selves. And that's why the 1920s, I know y'all are going to read The Great Gatsby real soon, right?
No, she said we're not doing it this
We're not
year.
doing that anymore.
Oh gosh, because he's part of the war and he comes home, and I guess not. Just ruin the book for you. No. Hey, y'all are reading Trevor Noah, which, okay. So Americans are against entangling alliances with European countries. So, okay, wait. Let me go to this image. I have them backwards. Wait. Here's the treaty. It's coming home. Do y'all see this little briefcase? Woodrow Wilson, which is kind of serendipitous that Woodrow Wilson's initials are World War I. Okay, that's how you remember he's the president during World War I. He's coming home from this peace treaty, right? He has the draft of it. And what's happening to him?
Being shot at.
He's getting shot at. Who do you think are loading up these arrows at him? The Republicans he's left behind, and who is the ringleader? Lodge. Y'all understand? Y'all have all this outside information. So let's go back to this image. Now Lodge has taken that treaty, and what has he done with it?
Patched up, walked it itself.
Okay, do y'all see it says Senate Committee on Foreign Relations Operating Room? He has ripped it up. He's added stuff to it, right? And basically, he's added his 14 reservations. And basically, the 14 reservations protect American sovereignty, American power, dealing with Article X. Article X declares that any time a nation needs to go to war, they must go to the League. The League can pull them into wars. Wait, what does that do to America's power to declare war? Takes it away. And the Republicans do not like that. And so that is their biggest issue with the treaty. And so it will not pass. And y'all saw this on the study guide. The Senate and the House cannot agree on it, right? So then Wilson goes to who? The people in a solemn referendum. He's going to go to the people. And he's going to read all 296 pages of this treaty to the people. Do you think they want to listen? No. They want to go figure out how to do the Charleston or something, right? Okay? So, he goes on this tour, and amidst this tour, what happens to him? He gets sick and he has a stroke. And so this is going to go before the Senate. And the Senate will vote on this. Wilson's enraged. He goes on a cross-country tour. The Senate's going to vote. I already talked about this. The armistice. Wilson went to Paris alone. Who did he forget? And so Wilson returns home. They all have their issues and their axes ready. Wilson begins his tour. Wilson suffers a stroke. So now it goes before the Senate. I want us to look at this political cartoon because there's a lot going on. What's going on in this image?
U.S. Senate.
Okay, so there's a wedding, right? And there's Uncle Sam And foreign entanglements deals with what is it again? The treaty, the League of Nations. And then here we have the minister. He's not reading from a Bible, but he's reading from the, because it's uniting us. And he says, if any man can show just cause why they may not be lawfully joined together, let them speak now. And then who comes out? The Senate, because what is their issue? Article what? That could pull us into war and also limits the U.S.'s ability to declare war. So basically, they're going to vote on the treaty with reservations, and that's the Republican one. The Democrats vote against it. They don't get 2/3. So then they look at Wilson's original treaty, and the Republicans vote against it. Okay, the irreconcilables are going to vote against all treaties. They don't want us to be involved. So then eventually by March, they vote with that treaty with reservations, and they don't get the 2/3. So this is when Woodrow Wilson says, look, Wilson says the presidential election of 1920 will be a solemn referendum. And I think you have to write this on the back side. He says, if the country chooses the Democratic candidate, Cox, they want to sign the treaty. If they vote for the Republican candidate, Harding, they did not. Who wins? Harding wins the election. Okay, so I want us just to look at who's running. Because James Cox, if they voted for him, that means they were for the league. But look who his vice president was. He will eventually be down the pipeline for being president. But he's getting ready, right? Over here we have Warren G. Harding. Warren G. Harding will die in office. Calvin Coolidge will become the next president. But they're against the league. So does the U.S. ever sign the Treaty of Versailles and join the League of Nations? No. And so this is why by FDR's administration in 1933, we will formally end the war with Germany. Okay? I just want you to see how popular Harding was. And I'm going to flip to this one. Look how popular he was. Was the nation really for that treaty? No. Okay.